Sometimes life takes us down paths we would never have imagined. I married the man of my dreams, and like many people, I thought my future would be perfect. I believed with all my heart that we had everything to live happily ever after. However, the choices I made, well, they changed everything. If you've ever wondered how impulsive decisions can turn your life upside down, I'm proof of that. Today, I'm going to tell the story of my biggest mistake, the mistake that destroyed not only my marriage but also a part of who I was. James was the perfect man, intelligent, caring, and deeply committed to everything he did. We met during a trip I took for work, and it was as if destiny had brought us together. After months of intense and passionate dating, we got married with the certainty that we would be together forever. Our wedding was a dream. Family and friends gathered, smiles all around. Everything seemed to be in place as if the universe was conspiring for our union to be blessed. I was radiant, and the happiness was almost palpable. But life has a strange way of changing our certainties. A few months after the wedding, we decided to move to James's family farm. His father, Henry, was going through a difficult time after his wife's death, and James felt it was his duty to help. I, of course, supported him. I wasn't prepared to leave city life, to move away from friends and the hectic routine that I loved so much, but I imagined that this change would be temporary, a phase for us to support Henry until he could better deal with his pain. The place was beautiful, I can't deny it. Green fields that stretched as far as the eye could see, a blue sky that seemed bigger than any I had ever seen. But at the same time, it was all strange to me. There wasn't the constant sound of horns, the frantic pace of people coming and going. It was all very different, too silent. In that silence, I found myself trapped with my own thoughts. At first, Henry and I barely talked. He spent a lot of time alone, dealing with his own loss, and I was trying to get used to the loneliness. James, on the other hand, seemed to be in his element. He worked in the fields every day, which made him feel alive. And me? Well, I was increasingly isolated, far from everything I knew. As time went by, things started to change. Henry and I, little by little, started talking. At first, it was just comments about the weather, the crops, life on the farm. Nothing deep. But as the days passed, these conversations became more frequent. I began to realize that Henry felt alone too. He was still dealing with grief over the loss of his wife, and our grief in different ways ended up bringing us together. James spent more and more time in the country, while Henry and I stayed at the house. We began to share more than just superficial words. Our conversations, which had previously been about dinner or the weather, began to touch on deeper topics. Henry was great company. He knew how to listen to me, and somehow he made me feel understood. And that's how things start, isn't it? Little by little, without you noticing. And then the day arrived. It was a particularly hot day, one of those days where heat seems to accumulate in the air, making everything heavier. We were alone in the house as usual. I decided to make some fresh lemonade to beat the heat. As I squeezed the lemons, I felt Henry's eyes on me. It was a look I was noticing more and more, something that made me uncomfortable and excited at the same time. I tried to ignore him, focusing on the task at hand, but when I finished and offered him a glass, our fingers touched, sending an electric current through my body, and the words just stopped. It was one of those moments when looks last longer than they should, when silence becomes charged. I can't say who took the initiative or what exactly was going through my head, but at that moment we crossed a line. We made love right there on the kitchen table, with a desperation and need that I had never felt before. I was ecstatic with the size of Henry's tool, which was very large. As we lay together, trying to catch our breath, the reality of what we had done began to set in. I had betrayed my husband, crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. That day was the turning point. Something in me changed forever. We had done something that couldn't be undone, and the guilt soon set in, heavy as a stone. I knew this was wrong, deeply wrong, but at the same time, There was a part of me that was so involved that it seemed impossible to turn back. What is right and what is wrong when your heart takes over your actions? In the months that followed, our romance remained a secret. Henry and I continued to act normal in front of James as if nothing had changed. But inside, every furtive glance, every hidden touch made the weight of our betrayal grow. We knew we were walking a tightrope, but we continued anyway. Nobody knew, or at least that's what we thought. But in life, secrets rarely stay hidden for long. One day, one of the farm workers saw us together. It didn't take long for the news to start spreading. The shock came quickly and there was no escape. The damage was done. James was devastated. The pain in his eyes was something I will never forget. He looked at me as if he was seeing a stranger, as if the woman he loved had never existed. There were no words that could justify what I did. He filed for divorce, and I knew I couldn't fight it. Our marriage, our life together, everything was over. I left the farm soon after. Henry and I realized our relationship no longer had a place. What we had was a shadow of what love should be. Leaving was the only choice left, but the weight of my decisions followed me. I left the farm, but the guilt and shame came with me. Starting over was not easy. For months, I woke up every morning with a knot in my stomach, knowing that I had destroyed the lives of two people I loved. Guilt followed me like a shadow, but over time, I learned to live with my choices. I never saw James or Henry again. They moved on with their lives just as I followed mine. The past cannot be erased, but it can be accepted. If there's anything I've learned from all of this, it's that passion, no matter how intense, can take us down dark and unexpected paths. But honesty and respect are pillars that should never be broken. I learned this the hard way possible. Now, I carry the lesson that certain choices have consequences that last forever. That was my story. Maybe by sharing it, I will help someone not make the same mistake. For those of you who made it this far, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel to receive more videos from us. Until the next content.